Within the lore for the Monsterverse, like the bones of the mighty Dagon, plenty of evidence has been left behind that shows us that Gojira were once many. They roamed the Hollow Earth for eons, long enough to see the planet change over multiple times, and over time, an interesting new species was born: the humans. In this Monsterverse lore video, we have uncovered how the ancient advanced civilization of humans in the Hollow Earth were able to overcome nearly impossible odds and bring down the King Titans using nothing but primitive weapons and their brains. We have two theories based on official art found in the Godzilla vs. Kong One Will Fall art book that reveals how mankind was able to defeat ancient Gojira, and finally explain why there were so many fossilized remains of Godzilla's species riddled in the human and Kong territories in the Hollow Earth. Stay tuned to the end of the video to find out why. This is Jacob. Make sure to stomp the subscribe button and hit the bell if you haven't already, and let's get to it. The Monsterverse is full of hidden little details that allows the fans to put together the pieces of ancient lore in this series. So I was taking a look at the official Godzilla vs. Kong art book when I finally found this brutal bit of lore. The ancient humans who we always see in the cave art drawings in the Monsterverse were actually able to do something that even modern humanity can't do: outsmart and outmatch Godzilla. There are two bits of art in the book that prove that humans were able to set elaborate traps for the Gojira, collapsing the floor beneath them, and even appeared to be able to capture and contain these alpha titans. Now we can't be for sure when, but at some point in the lore, mankind and the Kongs aligned forces in an epic war against the Gojira. We don't know who started the war, but more and more evidence keeps coming out supporting that it was indeed us humans who caused it. Let's dive deep into these images a little more now. The first of which shows multiple humans, sporting spears, raising their arms in triumph, as a Gojira falls down what looks to be a massive hole. We don't know where the mysterious abyss leads to exactly, but the second cave art image shows what is clearly a Gojira entombed in some sort of mountain-shaped tomb, with a human on top once again striking a victory pose. I'm sure this ancient race of humans didn't care much for the much more powerful and hostile Gojira always roaming around. And just like in real life, these early humans likely saw the giant reptiles as an extreme danger to them, or as nothing more than a source for resources. Not all of them considered the Gojira as benevolent beings like we know some did. The image of the fallen Gojira was likely the outcome of a long, elaborate plan to have the individual walk in a perfect path that led to this trap. And when this happened, the floor fell out from the Gojira and the mission was a success. These holes could have been used for multiple reasons. Perhaps this hole was actually an exit portal to the surface, and the ancient humans managed to exile some of the Gojira. Maybe the hole was only deep enough to trap the Gojira in it, just so they could seal the beast in. Or maybe their plan was much more brutal. To help explain this theory, Alistair will go over what us humans have done in the real world that will help pull this whole idea together in your brains.
Right, let's get to it. Let's start, 10,000 years ago. Early mankind was really starting to come together, and one of the reasons for this was the ability to hunt and kill massive animals like the woolly mammoth. But when all they had was rocks and primitive spears, there wasn't much they could do to bring down massive mammoths, until, of course, they used their brains. At some point, a group of humans were able to create a plan that would not only result in getting just one kill, but potentially an entire herd of mammoths with one simple task: spook the giants using torches or throwing spears and running them off steep cliffs and to their doom. This hunting style is known to have happened due to dig locations that have heaps of broken mammoth fossils all in one location, supporting the idea that these beasts all died as they impacted the ground, and then were butchered for meat and materials on the spot, with nothing but their bones left for us to find thousands of years later. Now let's fast forward to only 50 some odd years ago and into the Vietnam War. Viet Cong forces were up against the greatest modern military force of all time, the United States of America. I mean, America is pretty powerful, but it's no British Empire, is it? To combat the much more advanced military threat, the locals used primitive and downright brutal traps to kill and terrify the American soldiers. They would dig holes just large enough for men to fall into, just to be impaled by dozens of sharpened bamboo stakes, swarmed by venomous snakes, or captured and then held for future interrogation as prisoners of war. Truly nasty ways to go, but with Godzilla, these ways of using environments and special tools is actually one of the only ways mankind could ever hope to take down one of the Alpha Titans. Now I'll let the Yank finish his theory.
So did the ancient human civilization use the guerrilla tactic to fight and possibly even hunt the members of Godzilla's species? The official art would tell us yes. Now it may be hard to comprehend how humans with spears were able to do something that the humans from modern times cannot, and that is to trap and or kill a Gojira. But these ancient humans in the monsterverse were not just a bunch of clueless cavemen. The humans of the Hollow Earth were primitive, but they were also very advanced in ways we cannot really understand. Just like many of Earth's real-life ancient mighty civilizations like Egypt, these Hollow Earth humans were able to do amazing things, like building giant kaiju temples. So crafting a Godzilla trap is certainly not out of the question for these people. Perhaps they even had the Kongs help them dig these mighty holes. Sure would blend with the lore we do have from the books that states humans and Kongs were beginning to work together before the Great War. Once the giant hole was dug out, the surface would be covered with any sort of material, long enough to go from end to end, and then finally made to resemble the rest of the floor just enough to fool a Titan into thinking it was solid earth under its feet. And after a carefully, and I do mean carefully executed plan, the humans would lure the giant near the trap, and with a little luck, the Gojira would step into the trap, causing the makeshift floor to crumble and eventually collapse. The mighty Gojira would be helpless to do anything, and would crash through the trap and fall to its sad fate. At the bottom of this hole could be nothing. It could just be intended as a tomb to cover back up and trap the monster in there for as long as possible, which is what the second bit of art details. Or it could have had a much more fatal surprise hidden at the bottom. As the Gojira fell, roaring in surprise, it came to a violent halt as its body came in contact with the viciously sharp stakes crafted at the bottom of the hole. Just like the pits in the Vietnam War, these would skewer the victim and leave it pinned brutally to the floor of the pit until it died. A Gojira can take a hell of a beating, but we know that the beast's own weight can lead to harsh injuries when falling down. But the mighty stakes at the bottom would have ripped right through the beast as the force of its own body weight drove the stakes even further into its flesh and organs. Truly a brutal way to go out, and one that does add up in the Monsterverse lore. Gojira are tough, but they aren't immortal. You can't take them head on, so you have to think outside of the box. This type of elaborate trap could have been used to hunt the Gojira at first, as the ancient humans and Kongs both knew that a Gojira was a bountiful source of resources needed to make weapons, tools, buildings, and so much more. Just like what happened to the mammoths, the ancient humans and Kongs would butcher the Gojira and use all the parts they could. Maybe this was the catalyst for the Great Titan War. This was humanity attempting to take control from the Gojira, and they did it all using simplistic but very effective tactics. Some humans must have turned their backs on their kind and sided with the Gojira, hence the evidence of those who worship them. But it's clear now that mankind was looking to dominate the Gojira, much like our real ancestors destroyed the population of mammoths. And they did a good job too, as we only know of two Gojira who survived the war, our G-Man and Dagon. This is just one more reason why even though Godzilla tolerates modern humanity in the Monsterverse lore, he will never be able to truly trust them due to how his kind was lured into these barbaric traps and had their bodies cut up just to be used for resources. Do you think Godzilla's species were hunted and lured into these hellish traps? Let us know in the comments down below. Remember to subscribe and share this theory around to let us know what you think. And thank you again for giving us your time. Don't forget to go check out some of our merch if you haven't already. Links to that are right down below you. As always, residents, this has been Jacob, and I will see you in the next one.